So this is an image from Prism, which is, of course, the United States' massive espionage platform. This is an outdated photo. This shows you some of the platforms that they spy on. YouTube, AOL, which is pretty irrelevant now, Pal Talk, which I've never heard of before, Skype, Google, Yahoo, Hotmail, Facebook, Gmail, and undoubtedly this will include many more platforms these days, as there's a lot of new ones. Probably things like TikTok and Twitter, I'm sure, will be on here now. But there's a little logo here that's shaped like, kind of like a Pac-Man or an apple. Well, that's Apple, right? This very clearly shows from their internal leaked documents that they spy on Apple data. Now, Apple in 2013 denied this. See, Apple denies Prism backdoor. What are you talking about? iMessage, which is basically their text message platform, is end-to-end encrypted. And a lot of people get very confused about encryption and end-to-end encryption, and to what degree does encryption actually protect you or anything. So I want to talk a little bit about what encryption is. I happen to be quite good with computers, so I want to share with you guys just very briefly a very easy to understand, hopefully, explanation of what exactly they're talking about here. So here I've got this very brand new program called Photoshop. I just want to kind of illustrate this concept a little bit. So let's say you've got two people or places or groups and you want to communicate with each other. You can send radio messages or shout or do all kinds of different things. Around World War II, most of our modern cryptography concepts were developed, which is mostly unchanged, although we've evolved it quite a bit. So the concept of encryption really is pretty simple. It's that if you're going to send some data between here and here, the problem is that somebody in the middle can probably capture from here to here. They can probably capture some of your data, because radio waves and even internet traffic is, by default, it's unencrypted, meaning it's just raw. If I send you hello, anybody else listening will see hello. And so basically what encryption is they decided that, hey, before we communicate, I'm going to come up with, in the most simplest terms, a number. Let's just say a number. I'm going to use the number 2. And you know that this number is 2. It's our magic number. And if I send you a special code like 45 and you see 45 and this spy sees 45, this spy doesn't know that we actually have to multiply 45 times 2 to get the real value, which is 90. So I know 90, I told you 90, you know 90, but the person in between us only sees 45 and they don't know that that actually means 90. That's the very, very basic concept of how encryption works. So encryption is only secure from this middle person if they don't understand this number and how to use it. Because of the way modern encryption works, generally how to use it is very easy to discover. But what that number is the hard part. The problem is that as encryption became popular, we ended up with this type of situation. Here's your computer or your desk or some kind of sandcastle, and you are communicating to, let's say, Apple. You're communicating to Apple, and Apple is communicating to your friend at their, I'm going to say, desk. So the problem is, you know that the secret key is 2, and Apple knows that the secret key is 2 because you're communicating from yourself to Apple, and then Apple uses that to communicate to your friend. So the problem is, yeah, if the triangle spy person is here, they may see 45 and they don't know what to do, so you feel protected. But Apple knows that it's 2. Apple knows what to do with it, and they know that it's 2, which means Apple can read all of your messages. And because they are legally bound to do so, they can share with the government or unknown anybody that information as well. So you say 45, Apple sees 45, your friend sees 45, and all three of you know that that actually means 90. Any hacker spy may not know that, but the government will also know that. And so this isn't very actually secure. So what they did is they being the geniuses who create this stuff, they decided, okay, let's do it a different way. Let's do what's called end-to-end encryption, which basically means in the same situation where you've got Apple, my drawings are getting better and better. What we're going to do is, you know it's 2 and your friend knows it's 2, but this communication is all encrypted so that even Apple cannot see that it's 2. They only see 45, and a spy only sees 45. And you guys both see 45. You know that it's times 2, and your friend knows that it's times 2, but basically Apple is treated as a hacker. They only see the 45. That's basically what the most simple explanation for what end-to-end encryption is. It basically means that no matter who you're talking to, everyone in between, including the platform you're on, doesn't have access to the information. Sounds wonderful, right? It just sounds like this is the solution. This is not that important, but I just want you guys to basically understand what end-to-end encryption is. And there's one more thing that you need to understand. I always have maintained that even end-to-end encryption is not, it doesn't at all mean that your data is totally safe from governments, and I'm going to show you why. So let's draw the same type of thing, and you've got Apple here, and you're communicating through them, and you know it's times 2 is your secret key, and they know it's times 2 is your secret key. The problem is, as one example, Apple can design software that gives you this times 2 and gives them this times 2, and knows that your thing will be times 2, even though it's not actually directly part of this chain. That's one of many different examples of ways that they can still use end-to-end encryption, and that they technically don't have the key, but they know what your key would be. These are very slippery ways that corporations can still claim things like end-to-end encryption and basically backdoor them. All right, hope all that basically makes sense. The point of what I'm telling you is that no matter how encrypted anything is, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's totally secure from everything. So a long time ago, we've got PRISM, the United States, showing very clearly that they're spying on Apple. Then we've got Apple denying that and saying, no, we don't have that, because iMessage has end-to-end encryption. And I've just showed you one small example of why that doesn't necessarily refute the claim that PRISM is spying on you. But this is 2013. It doesn't really matter what they said back then, because that only answers the question of, have they been spying on you? Which is yes. The real news today is, are they continuing to spy, and will they continue to, and are they going to expand this spying on not just Americans, anyone who uses Apple servers in countries that are covered by this program. So for example, if you are connected to their servers, regardless of where you are, if it's with a VPN or whatever, you will be subject to this new thing that's happening. So they've got this wonderful program where they're expanding protections for children. And this is a really great idea, because using children in a title and as a reason for doing something is very difficult to push back on. So the idea for this program is that there's a lot of pedophiles, like child molesters, who share child porn or something like that, and Apple's sick of it. And so what they're going to do is they're going to backdoor what they said that they don't backdoor. Now they're going to backdoor it, and they're going to automatically scan things like images, and in a very convoluted way, essentially try to automatically discover and decide if somebody's sharing child porn. So that's great. That's a great step towards this goal of limiting the spread of child sexual abuse material, which apparently has a name called KSAM. This whole document that they have is just covered with all this references to children and child and abuse and all kinds of stuff. And it says that the program is ambitious and protecting children is an important responsibility. Now, why this responsibility has anything to do with Apple is completely beyond anyone, hopefully, who's reading this. I don't understand why a software and hardware company is now tasked with protecting children. It doesn't explain in here why it's their job, but apparently it is. So basically, you've got some sort of jabbering, like the message app will add new tools to warn children and their parents when receiving or sending sexually explicit photos. That's all good and great. The real question, though, is how are they doing that if they don't have access to what those photos are? It's impossible. So what they're really saying here, the really important thing to many people here is yes, they are saying that it has to do with protecting children. But the issue is they're just undoing their encryption to be able to supply these images and texts to government agencies and frankly to anyone that they choose to, legal or not. This still means that a hacker trying to look at your family images or whatever that you're sending on iMessages, they still would not be able to see it. And that allows them to say that it's encrypted. And that word encrypted is such a buzzword that people think that it means that they're protected. But as we can see very clearly, they're not going to protect you. They haven't been. And if they ever were, they're going to reduce that protection markedly. There's been a lot of pushback on this. So they released a new thing, a new little document here that attempts to sort of explain and tell you all about how, they're going to do their best to protect your privacy, which of course their best would be to not do this. But here we go. Let's just skim through this. There's a couple of interesting things here. So they outline things like security and privacy requirements. They say things like consent. The user must always have a choice about whether to take an action that can result in a notification being sent. I mean, this is totally irrelevant, right? This has nothing to do with the fact that you're going to be continuing or even expanding the spying that you're doing on everyone who uses Apple products. And then the goal is they want a feature to be designed to detect collections of illegal known child whatever images stored on Apple servers in iCloud Photos libraries. Okay, so this is not just your iMessages either. They're going to be detecting and looking through all of your photos as well and videos. So your photos, videos, text messages, all your communications are going to be detected. But they're not going to learn anything about non-CSAM images, they say. They just say that. This is the mechanism for how they determine if they've identified a source image as being illegal. So they've got a hash list, which I won't bore you with, but basically it's a short, smaller sized way to reference a bunch of files. Okay, they've got a bunch of files that they know are illegal, which comes from some organization. And then they've got a different organization that also has their own list that basically says, yes, we have verified that such and such image is illegal. And Apple will only use any images that show up on two of these lists. In other words, this is a very more technical way to say they're going to look at all your images automatically and then see if they show up on at least two child safety organization photos. And the second protection is human review. So don't worry, they're not going to be looking at your images except for with computers and with humans. So all positive matches must be visually confirmed by Apple. So for example, if you've got a photo of your loved one who's wearing scant clothing, let's just say, there's a high chance that people at Apple will be looking directly at that image, even though you think that it's encrypted, because it's only encrypted from somebody out in the world who may be trying to pry in. But Apple is totally allowed to check out your significant other. The fact is this, no matter how many times somebody tells me about how big, bad, and scary China's surveillance system is because they can see everything, I am never fooled by this trick. Because as long as the internet has existed, the US government has been spying on basically all of it. All of it. And the more that the internet expands into things like IoT, Internet of Things, which includes things like, smart pet feeders and all that kind of stuff, as these things come online, we can expect with absolute certainty that those things will be used to spy on us as well. We already know that laptops and cell phones can have their cameras turned on remotely without any light so that they can film us and watch what we're doing. This is not even new news. I mean, this is like a decade old. Just remember that no matter what you are doing, if you're doing it on the internet, chances are someone in the world, an actual human, has complete access to that, no matter what they say about encryption, end-to-end encryption, or this or that or the other thing. And even if you were to use a platform which uses completely open source, well-known, well-devised encryption, there are still other ways for people to come in contact with your information, such as compromising the other side. So if you send a message to your friend's, phone or whatever, and they see it and everything along the path is totally secure, well, somebody could have compromised that phone, right? The point is, there is no such thing as privacy on the internet. It does not exist. And so if people tell you something differently, either they're ignorant of this fact or they're trying to sell you something. So that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about today. For me, I'm not too bothered by it because, it's just, to me, it's inevitable. There's no way around this. There's nothing that you can do that will stop governments from doing this. As we can see from the most democratic countries where everybody is popularly elected, supposedly, even there they go against the wishes of the people to do this. It doesn't matter to what degree people have a say in this. The fact is, this is just how technology probably will always work. And that's something that, frankly, we just have to get used to. So Apple is definitely sharing your information, your photos, your videos, and your texts in any language that you write them in or communicate in. They're definitely sharing them with government agencies. They have humans that are looking at them, and they have technological programs. Basically, they're trying to use algorithms to detect them as well. So your data is not safe. If you want to do something that's safe from prying eyes, you're going to have to go out to the woods somewhere and dig yourself a hole and go in there and talk about it.